Before Cortés saw a temple, before he saw a pyramid, before he saw an army, he walked into a market. Not a back alley bazaar, a city within the city. On the great market days, as many as 60,000 people gathered at Tlatelolco to trade. The air smelled of chilies, herbs, roasting turkey, and something darker. People weren't counting coins. They were counting beans. One cacao bean bought 20 small tomatoes, or 5 chilies. A cotton cloak cost 65, sometimes 300 beans. The ruler of Texcoco received 11 million cacao beans in tribute every year. He drank 2 million and spent the rest. A Spaniard in 1519 expected to see gold. Instead, he watched men drink their money. The foaming beverage they sipped was bitter and cold, spiced with chili, fragrant with flowers, reserved for warriors, priests, and rulers. To the Mexica, cacao was not a flavor. It was currency, blood, power, and prayer. This isn't the story of a sweet treat. This is the story of an empire that engineered its economy, its warfare, and its rituals around food, and how that empire still lives in your kitchen.
60,000 people in one market and not a single coffee shop. I've been through worse. Stick around.
Tenochtitlan wasn't built on land. It floated. The Mexica capital, connected to the mainland by great causeways, housed approximately 400,000 people. A metropolis on a lake, at a time when most European cities held fewer than 50,000. Its engineers extended farmland by weaving reeds around posts of willow, anchoring them in lake mud, and piling on sediments and compost. These became the chinampas, floating gardens. Willow roots secured them from erosion. Canals delivered water to the soil from below. Farmers dredged fertile mud from the canal bottoms to fertilize the crops. This sub-irrigation system protected plants from frost and allowed multiple harvests per year. Contemporary accounts say these plots could produce up to 6 crops annually. 6 harvests in a single year, while European farmers managed one. The farmers planted maize, squash, beans, chilies, tomatoes, amaranth, herbs. They planted willows along the edges for shade and windbreaks. This was industrial agriculture before the Industrial Revolution. Maize was the staff of life in Mesoamerica. But mature corn is deficient in available niacin. Without intervention, dependence on maize causes pellagra, skin lesions, dementia, death. The Mexica solved this problem with nixtamalization, cooking corn in alkaline lime water. Chemists now know that this process releases niacin, increases calcium content, and changes the texture of the kernels, making them easier to grind. The tortilla, the tamale, the atole, all born from this single act of transformation. But the Mexica rarely ate maize alone. They combined it with beans and squash, the 3 sisters. Beans supply lysine, an amino acid that maize lacks. Squash provides vitamins and fats. Together, these 3 crops support each other in the field and form a complete protein in the stomach. This agricultural knowledge, encoded in myth and daily practice, created a food system resilient enough to sustain a metropolis on a lake Cacao doesn't grow in the high Central Valley. The altitude was wrong, the climate was wrong, the soil was wrong. So the Mexica demanded it as tribute from the provinces they conquered. Spanish chroniclers recorded our exchange rates precisely. 200 cacao beans equaled a Spanish real of silver. One bean bought 20 tomatoes, or 5 green chilies. 11 million beans were delivered yearly to a single ruler. Cacao seeds were stashed in little bags, the way we carry cash. But they were also roasted, ground, mixed with maize dough and spices, and whipped into a frothy drink, bitter, sometimes spiked with chili, sometimes perfumed with magnolia blossom. Commoners rarely tasted it. Warriors drank it before battle. Nobles drank it during rituals. Merchants drank it to seal deals. To the Mexica mind, cacao was not a luxury. It was a medium of exchange, a sacrament, and a stimulant. Drinking it meant ingesting currency, power, and the life force of a sacred tree. Bernal Diaz del Castillo wrote that he had never seen anything like it. On regular days, 25,000 shoppers crowded the stalls at Tlatelolco. On feast days, that number could double. The marketplace had zones for everything: maize in sacks, beans in baskets, chili peppers in heaps, tomatoes and squash in piles, avocados, vanilla pods, turkeys, rabbits, deer, tiny hairless dogs, fish, algae cakes, honey, salt, obsidian blades, cotton cloaks, feathered headdresses. Judges patrolled the aisles to settle disputes. Inspectors checked weights and measures. Trade was efficient because of standardized cacao currencies and strict regulation. A few beans bought a meal. Hundreds bought a mantle. The scale of the market, tens of thousands of people moving goods every single day, made Tenochtitlan a commercial powerhouse, a floating exchange where food was stock, currency, and sustenance, all at once. Food mirrored power. Moctezuma II's chefs prepared more than 300 dishes for him every single day. Turkeys, pheasants, ducks, venison, rabbits, game of every kind. Servants brought the meal behind a screen so the emperor could eat in semi-seclusion. He finished with a cup of foaming chocolate served in a golden goblet. Most Mexica were not drowning in dishes. The average family ate tortillas and atole, a maize-based porridge, beans, squash, chili, and occasionally fish or insects rounded out the diet. Tamales stuffed with meat were reserved for festivals. Social status could be tasted. Nobility consumed rare meats and cacao. Commoners filled up on maize. Even so, the food system delivered enough calories to sustain a population larger than any European city of its time. To the Mexica, the universe was built on sacrifice. They believed the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the current cycle of the world, that only human blood could keep the sun moving across the sky. Priests sometimes offered their own blood. Citizens bled their ears or their tongues. Captives were marched up temple steps. Food was part of this cosmic exchange. Amaranth, a grain as important as maize, was mixed with the blood of sacrificial victims, shaped into statues of the sun god and eaten by the Mexica. More than 20,000 tons of amaranth were delivered each year as tribute for these rituals. To outsiders, this was horror. To the Mexica, it was repayment. Every maize kernel, every cacao bean, every breath came from the gods, and debt had to be paid in kind. In 1520, a smallpox epidemic ravaged Tenochtitlan. Spanish siege lines cut the causeways. The aqueducts were destroyed. The chinampas were ruined. Canals filled with corpses and debris. Starvation and disease killed tens of thousands. When the city fell, the floating gardens were drained for farmland. The lakes were gradually reclaimed. The market at Tlatelolco was emptied. The Mexica world, its cosmic debt, its edible currency, its engineered landscape was dismantled. And yet, the Spanish could not destroy everything. Seeds traveled farther than swords. Corn, beans, squash, tomatoes, chilies, vanilla, cacao spread across the globe. Chocolate, once a bitter currency, became a sweet commodity. Maize fed continents. Without the Mexica's crops, there would be no Italian tomatoes, no Hungarian paprika, no Swiss chocolate. The world's diet was quietly revolutionized by a civilization whose story is often told only in blood. Walk into your kitchen, the corn in your pantry, the chocolate in your cupboard, the chilies in your hot sauce, the vanilla in your cake, all of it, legacies of the Mexica. The foods that built Tenochtitlan now feed billions. The Three Sisters are planted from Africa to India. Cacao plantations cover West Africa. Chili peppers fire up cuisines from Sichuan to Senegal. What was once tribute for emperors is now a global staple. The Mexica believed their world would end without sacrifice. Ironically, their foods ensured they would never be forgotten. No Hungarian paprika, no Swiss chocolate. The world's diet was quietly revolutionized by a civilization whose story is often told only in blood.
They built an empire on a lake, fed millions from floating gardens, and turned a bitter bean into the most traded currency in the world. And we called them primitive. Think about that next time you eat chocolate.
Food didn't just feed the Mexica. It financed their markets, fueled their wars, satisfied their gods, and connected them to the cosmos. The currency you could drink, the floating gardens that never froze, the maize processed to unlock hidden nutrients, the amaranth statues eaten with blood. All of it shows the same thing. Food was the fabric of their civilization. We remember them for the sacrifices. We forget the chocolate, we forget the maize, we forget the farmers kneeling in wet soil before sunrise. We forget the merchants counting beans like coins. They didn't just eat to survive. They ate to keep the world alive. If this changed how you see the food on your table, subscribe to Eaten by Time. Because history isn't just written in stone. It's cooked, chewed, and swallowed.
Wait, before you go. Next episode, we leave the Aztecs behind and travel to ancient Greece, where the first Olympic champions didn't eat protein shakes, didn't eat supplements, they ate figs, bread, cheese, and sometimes nothing at all, and they competed completely naked in front of the gods. If that doesn't make you curious, I don't know what will. Subscribe to Eaten by Time and help this channel grow. History is waiting.